Hello, everyone. Welcome along. I have a real privilege today to interview a hero to many of us and someone who's inspiring a lot of us to get outdoors at the moment. This man has climbed Everest, rode the Atlantic, run across the Sahara Desert. He has crossed the deserts of the empty quarter of the Middle East. He has 9 Sunday Times best-selling books. And he's also the UN patron for the wilderness. Massive pleasure to welcome you along. Thank you, Ben Fogle, for joining us. Welcome along.
Thank you very much. I feel a bit embarrassed by that introduction, to be honest.
Well, I had to write it all down, and I had to cut bits out. It was very difficult to do, but you've done quite a lot over the years, haven't you?
I've done quite a lot, but I'd prefer to just be known as sort of a traveller, a journeyman. I think it's quite easy to stereotype someone into one discipline, and for many years I called myself an adventurer. But it's interesting. I think kind of this year I've had a lot of time, like a lot of us, to think about what I do, how I would describe myself to other people. And I think this new term I'm going to christen, I think we're going to start using it now, journeyman, almost feels like it encompasses more of what I do than any other description, because I go on journeys, physical and mental, as in I go to explore places, and I meet people, and I meet communities, and I try to get to the bottom of why people choose to live where they do. So I think it's kind of all encompassing. I'm already going off piste. Sorry. We can
No, don't worry. That's what we want. We've got no script here. We'll just talk about whatever we talk about. One of the things I was going to ask you. Obviously, you famously love to travel. That comes across whenever you go to these new places and you interview these people. It really comes across your love for new environments. Now, obviously, that's not been possible. We're in the lockdown period at the moment. Hopefully, coming towards the end of it. But how have you fared, sort of personally, not traveling quite so much?
I found it difficult. I don't mind admitting that, but I'm also aware that I've had the kind of privilege and the luxury to have family around me, as in my kids and my wife, guinea pigs, dogs, and we've had access to outside space where we live. So I can't play my violin and say it's been terrible, but for someone who has traveled as prolifically as I have over the last 20 years, I've been more nomadic than I have than I've been stationary. It's taken some getting used to, and I've kind of approached this year like an inverted adventure. So I've seen these walls, which are very comfortable, and I feel very safe and very happy here. I've explored my home. I know every single nook and cranny and corner. It's been redecorated many times, and actually I've had time to reflect on lots of the journeys I've done in the past. So it sounds like a great plug, which I suppose it is. I wrote a book during lockdown called Inspire, which was it was the lessons that I'd learned from the wilderness. I tried to turn those into everyday language, so perhaps it became a bit more relatable. Climbing Everest for many people is almost abstract because it's not necessarily something they're going to do. So I tried to translate that into how we could put some of the lessons I learned into everyday life. So yeah, it's kind of been a year of living in here, remembering all the expeditions. And let's not forget the great philosopher Alain de Botton, who wrote a book called The Art of Travel, wrote something that I just think is so pertinent, and many of you watching today will agree with this, that actually the planning and the preparation and the retrospective the retrospective aspect of travel is often far more fun than the actual journey itself, when you've got diarrhea and you've missed the bus and you've run out of money and you end up in some horrid little hotel. I mean, all the joys of travel, but actually at the time it can be really miserable. You're sweating, you're freezing cold, you've been mugged of your money. We've all had these experiences, and that's why shows like this bring so much joy, because it's that excitement. I still get so excited going to any show that has outdoor gear and gives you an insight into the sort of courses you can do, the holidays you can take, countries showing themselves off. It's like a sweet shop. So for me, I've done a lot of planning. Believe me, as soon as the travel ban, I'm just referring it to that. I know that isn't a travel ban, but as soon as this all ends and the start gun goes, I'm going to be like,
straight out.
straight off.
And are you able to share any of the things that you will be doing, or is it all top secret at the moment?
No, it's not really top secret. I think I'm sure lots of you watching will have watched at some stage my series New Lives in the Wild, and you'll have recognised that the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks of New Lives in the Wild has all been here in the UK, which has been great, and I've loved filming it through lockdown, between lockdowns. I feel really grateful that we've been able to carry on. But we have been restricted to filming in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England, which is not worse, but it's different. And I see the feedback. Some people love it because they actually find it more accessible, because we can all kind of get to those areas. And last night was me revisiting Tommy, who comes from the United States, who moved to Fair Isle. Just the most, honestly, one of the most awesome islands ever. And, it's here on our doorstep, but a lot of people think that travel encompasses far away places. But my point here is that we had to pause all the international destinations, of which I think we have 15 ready to go. 15, I've seen all the stories, the locations, they are unbelievable. Because what's happened, the popularity of the series over the last decade means that people come to us now. And I get lots of suggestions, and the production company gets suggestions. So I can tell you, we have some amazing individuals, couples, families in some just beautiful locations around the world. So I'm kind of looking forward to actually getting started on that again. But I'd also, I think it's important to add, I think travel has been changed quite profoundly. I think the pandemic people have reassessed their travel values. And I don't mind admitting I traveled too much before. I didn't appreciate it. I was jumping from one thing to the other. That's both personal and for work. And I think we as a family are going to spend more time here in the UK, more time up in the Western Isles of Scotland, and enjoying this country. And I think actually when we look at the pandemic, which has affected this show and all of our lives, it's up to all of us to support and champion as many businesses as we can. And there are many bed and breakfast campsites, bushcraft schools, I could go on that kind of need our support. And I think we as a family are certainly going to help with help out. Maybe rather than eat out to help out, I think we need to recall it go out to help out. Be out to help out.
Be out to help out.
I've given you a new strategy. Be out to help out.
You've heard it here first. Patent Raccoon Events. We're having that one. No, thank you so much. And actually, I think it's very noble of you to sort of look at the people who've been affected by the lockdown and sort of think about supporting their business as well. And we're certainly hugely grateful for you to coming on to this. I think what was really interesting, I think, about the New Lives in the Wild with that UK slant is that there are adventures on your doorstep. And clearly, international travel is uncertain at the moment. But as things open up in this country, there's plenty to do, right? There's loads of great adventures here in the UK. Are there any that stick out to you?
Yeah, I feel really lucky that I've kind of been able to re-engage with the UK over the last year. I think, I hate to use this term, but I'd almost abandoned the UK when it comes to using it as this beautiful outdoor playground, because I had access to so many exciting overseas places. And, I love travel. I get my hairs on my arms stand on end as soon as I even think about travel. I love it. It's my oxygen. It's made me who I am. But I spent the first 10 years or so of my career traveling prolifically around the British Isles. I was working on Country File for 10 years. I worked on ITV's Country Wise. I did another show called Country Tracks. And over that 10-year period, I literally went to every single corner. So I really know this country. I think I'd kind of forgotten in the 10 years since doing all of that with all the international travel, I'd forgotten how amazing everywhere is. And by the way, there's this kind of notion that the only exciting places are kind of the Western Isles of Scotland, the Highlands, maybe some bits of Wales and the West Country. That couldn't be further from the truth. Believe me, the East Coast that everyone always forgets about, Northumberland all the way down, East Anglia, Suffolk, Norfolk coastline. Oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And there are so many creative companies and businesses offering access to the great outdoors, because that's what this is all about. That's why I'm working with you guys, because we want to encourage people to get out. And the irony that you and I are both sitting in a room is not lost on me right now, but this is the reality of the pandemic. But as soon as this stops, the kind of mental well-being of this country has been destroyed, and I include myself in that. Yeah, we have a really big uphill battle ahead of us. Once the vaccines are all out, then we can start with the real job on our hands, which is to get everyone back to full mental well-being. And nature and the outdoors is our way of doing it. So that's what I think we need to do. We need to get people out into woods and national parks and to the coastline, and to re-engage. We're social beings. We need to sit around campfires. We need to get cold and wet and get sand in our sandwiches. We kind of need to go back to those old-fashioned values. And I think this country has so much to offer wherever you are. Because I hear it a lot, people saying, "Oh, I live in," I'm not going to mention a county because I'll get everyone blaming me for kind of dissing their county. But I get people kind of saying, "I only live in this county. We don't really have very much. There's no national parks. There's no mountains." It's not true. You just need to scratch a little bit. You need to work a little bit. And that's what this show, is all about. It's demonstrating actually the creativity. And that's what's really kind of come to the fore throughout this pandemic, the creativity of different people to try to help us engage with nature.
And I think there's been a surge of people getting active outdoors. And actually, because it's been one of the few things we've been able to do, people have been trying stuff. And I think what we're keen to see is now people making that a habit, and not just doing it to pass the time while you're in lockdown, but actually using this, as you say, as a way to support your mental well-being and your physical well-being as it comes out. So when lockdown's lifted, what will be the first thing that you will do in this country? If you can go anywhere in this country, that might be a difficult question. I don't know.
Well, I mean, first of all, I have to admit that I've been quite lucky that even during lockdown, filming is allowed to continue. So I'm actually heading up to the Western Isles in just a few days. We're really, before anyone gets all nervous about that, don't worry, we do multiple tests, we have social distancing, we put everything into place. And I've done it throughout lockdown. So I've kind of been really lucky that I've been able to occasionally dip in and out, infrequently. I haven't done this a huge amount. So I have been lucky enough to already have minimal, very controlled access to these places. But in answer to your question, as a family, the ocean has always been my calling. And I think just to get to the sea and with my family, to be on a beach together, digging sandcastles, getting wasps in our orange juice, my daughter screaming, flicking sand into each other's eyes, running into the sea, freezing cold, getting stung by a jellyfish, all that kind of stuff.
It sounds amazing.
That's what don't you think? It's kind of those
absolutely.
I think it's given, the pandemic has given us, it's a reminder to actually enjoy those things we took for granted or that we grumbled about, because they're actually really beautiful. And I'm looking forward to doing that with my family, which I haven't had a chance to do.
I think it sounds amazing. And I think you've got such a great attitude to the outdoors and the wilderness in particular. It comes across a lot, certainly from the programs, that you enjoy sort of solitude and those sort of big expanses of wilderness. And I'm very conscious that obviously with your career, you're famous, so you must get stopped a lot by people in the street and things like that. Do you find those two things contrary, or do you just learn to live in both worlds and it's not a problem to manage?
I think one feeds the other in some ways. So I think one of the reasons I love the wilderness, if we're going to call it that, the great outdoors, is because I am actually often on my own, especially some of the places I go really are truly remote. But I'm also a social being, so I actually enjoy the company of people. But probably like a lot of us, I kind of like I like a mix between those two. I like moments of sociability, lots of people hugging, handshakes. I can't wait for all that to return, and engaging with people and chatting and being around people. But equally, I'm very happy on a solitary expedition where I'm with just two other people in Antarctica. And I think that's the tale of it's always been, my life has always been a tale of two worlds. So one moment I'm back, with my family. We're a very social family when we're not in the time of pandemic, and I find myself kind of living a very different world to the one when I go away. So actually, I think they both complement one another. I quite like, for me, variety has always been the spice of life. I like that mix, and I think that's always been my approach.
No, I think it's great, and we talk about hugs and high fives here a lot because we were trying to work out what one of our shows looks like, and if we can't do a show with hugs and high fives, it's not a show that I want to do. So that's our barometer of success here. Now, I was looking at a lot of people are talking about new skills that they've learned or new things that they've done during lockdown. You've been running around with no shirt on, so I've seen. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, let's be clear. I haven't done that just to show off my pecs, which don't actually exist. I've genuinely done it I've kind of done it for my mental well-being. So my wife and I decided at the beginning of the pandemic that our contribution to the national effort would be to look after our own health and well-being. We realized very early on that as long as we could look after ourselves, that there was nothing else we could do. We're not doctors. We're not. We don't work in laboratories. So apart from staying home, if we looked after our own well-being, then that would be our contribution. So we've both been running prolifically, which has been my escapism, and then I think as whatever this is this like the 100th lockdown? I've lost track. As soon as this lockdown happened in what I think most people agree are pretty gloomy months, January and February, I knew I would have to do something to keep on top of my own dark clouds that do gather. Yeah. And I've long been an admirer of Wim Hof, who is the advocate of cold water therapy. And he also is an advocate of bare skin therapy. So he takes people on hikes through the Alps shirtless. And I'd watched this many years. I've tried his cold showers. I use his cold shower therapy now. And in the absence of having cold water to get into, because I don't live close to the sea or to a lake, I decided that I would try some bare skin running, especially when the temperature dropped below zero, and it had mixed results. It was blooming freezing, and I did a full hour run when it was -5, and I have to admit, I actually thought I might have given myself hypothermia. I felt really, I've never felt so lethargic. I could barely keep my eyes open, but it was fine the next day. So I think the point here is do be careful. I think I overdid it that time, but I find it really energizing, and I kind of wanted to, how often do you have a moment to experiment with stuff like that? Usually we're so busy doing one thing to the next. There's not a huge amount of people out. We live in a rural area, so I wasn't going to be terrifying everyone. But
I was going to ask about that. Because, who do you run past?
Well, I have a couple of horses, a couple of dog walkers who kind of know me anyway, and I think people are just like, oh, yeah, that's not surprising. There goes Ben Fogle without a shirt on. Yeah, no surprise there. But I reiterate, I did it for functionality rather than kind of to show off my non-body.
I mean, if I did it, I think people would be crying at the side of the trails. But I think so. Did you feel? Was it invigorating afterwards? Was there a mental stimulation from it, or how did you feel when you got back in? Apart from the time where you nearly gave yourself hypothermia.
Well, I think the bigger picture here is that I've tried to find ways to stimulate myself that I used to get from travel and doing frequent things in the outdoors, and for me, I do it in a couple of different ways. So a run is one thing, but actually a year of running, you start to lose, it's like anything. If you do it, your body becomes used to it. And if a fitness instructor was with me, they'd probably say, you're doing that. You're kind of undoing yourself because you've done the same run almost for a year. I quite like consistency. A lot of people will be surprised to hear that. But I think because I have such an inconsistent life normally, I've actually quite liked this consistency every day doing the same thing. And I think with the bare skin running, it just gave me an extra little rush of kind of endorphins. It just made me feel alive. Anyone that's done the cold shower thing, believe me, you will have a rush of euphoria afterwards. It may be miserable when you do it, but for about half an hour afterwards, you will just feel so amazing. And that's kind of what happened with the bare skin running, but actually on a different level, because you feel the satisfaction that you've actually got outside, you've done some exercise, and your body is kind of all tingling, and it saves you in outdoor wear. That's probably not good for outdoor brands, but because what it does is means you have to wear less eventually, because your body becomes acclimatized, and you can walk around like these hardy farmers in a t-shirt when it's -20.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting way of making it. Was there anything else new that you did during lockdown that to sort of keep things going? Because obviously it's a long time when you're not doing your normal traveling thing. So you did the bare-chested running. Was there anything else that you tried? Or
Well, we did. We actually we had just moved to the country, so we actually started a lot of gardening, and by that specifically growing a veg patch. So actually last lockdown, obviously it was quite late when it happened, no one could get access to seeds, but actually we were very creative. We dug, I dug by hand a big area, we grew loads of crops, but it was kind of trial and error. So actually now we've had time to plan. We know that we're kind of in this till June, forever, June 2027, I think. We're now really planning. So actually my son is obsessed with seeds now. So it's given us all a new hobby. And we've actually got a little greenhouse now. So we've actually become very green fingered. I'm not particularly good at it, but I love kind of working in the garden, and that's kind of been something that's really bonded us as a family, working on that. So I've had the opportunity to teach the kids some bushcraft skills that I've learned from other people along the way. We've been camping in the garden. So yeah, we've tried to kind of make the most with what we have access to, and we've been really lucky to have access to a garden.
that's amazing. And obviously the purpose of this event and next year when we actually get to the live event is to inspire people to get outside and get active and take adventures and do something new and different. And I think obviously you do that a lot with your achievements and the things that you do. But to someone who's sat at home, who's just started walking during the lockdown period and just started getting into adventures, have you got any words of advice for them about how to go on and do more and get more engaged in the outdoor environment?
Well, I hope this is something that people will continue after the pandemic. I hope it has longevity. And I think if you've enjoyed those moments of walking, of meditation while you're out in nature, and when I say nature, it could be a park, it might be your local, a garden near your house, it might be a communal area, it might be a scrubland, it might be a great, beautiful forest. I think if you have enjoyed those moments, just imagine now when you have access to further afield places, the great national parks. Imagine when you can take your improved health and the walks you've done, or the running you may have been doing, or the new skill set that you've learned, but take them further afield. And I think there's just great excitement, really. When it comes to a holiday, this notion of just going and sitting on a beach in a faraway place and drinking too much, I think people do want more out of life now. And I think the notion of going and walking, I've got this obsession now about doing the whole southwest coastal path, 700 miles or so. I want to do the whole thing with my family, and that's the kind of thing I think big. Come on, you walk from Land's End to John O'Groats. Wouldn't that be amazing? Raise money. We can, the national effort to get the country back on its feet. I think there's a lot of things that we could all do as a nation, and I would just implore people to try and carry on.
I think that's a really important message. And I guess like a little, obviously you're a journeyman now, but in your adventures as an adventurer, I mean, is there anything that you always take with you? Is there one must have that wherever you go, you can't be without this particular item?
My eyes. I think that's it. You know what? You don't really need a great deal. Obviously cameras are nice to take pictures and communication with family, but actually, as long as you've got eyes and you can store those images and those experiences in here, I've realized the profound power that has when we go back into a lockdown in 5 years' time to dip back into that library of previous experiences.
I think that's a very appropriate point to finish on. Ben, you're an absolute star. Thank you so much for giving your time to do this. As those of you who are watching this, you will know that Ben was due to be with us at the NEC for the show this year. We haven't been able to run it, but he has kindly joined us for the digital version. We will have Ben in person on the 19th and 20th of March at the NEC next year. And we really look forward to seeing him then. Thank you so much for your time, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Look forward to seeing everyone in 2021. 2022. God, I've lost it. Let me do that one again. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you all it'll be 2022, I think.